well, good morning or afternoon or whatever it may be when you're looking at this little piece of wonderful Shire's history here in Darrigan Shire at Jurien Bay. And I refer to our war memorial, which is unique in Western Australia for a couple of reasons, which I will refer to as we discuss the building of it and the history of it. Actually, the genesis of the war memorial here came about when I recognised that many of the little wheat belt towns of Calabarin and Maidgen and various other little wheat belt towns all had a nice little war memorial. And we didn't have such here in Jurien. At this time, we had a little ex-servicemen's group which we'd formed virtually with members of the Jurien Bay Bowling Club. We used to do things that ex-servicemen do, like having a few cups of coffee and talk a few stories that some of the civilians, of course, fortunately don't have the experience to be able to talk about. Anyhow, at the little gathering on a particular occasion, I said, well, we're going to build a war memorial. And there was a stunned silence for a couple of seconds, and Bill Hale looked at me and he said, "You got rocks in your head again, Clarke." I said, "Why?" He said, "We haven't got any money to build a war memorial." I said, "Well, that doesn't mean to say we can't get it." Anyhow, progress went on, and I took the proposition to the Jurien Bay Progress Association, which was a very, very viable association in the town at the time, and they accepted the idea wholeheartedly and decided that we would approach the Shire on the subject. And this duly happened, and I was introduced to the project manager, who was a capable young man, David Senior. Told him what I wanted, one thing and another, and then the next step up the ladder with the Shire was a gentleman whom I knew quite well, and that was Ian Rennie. So with the Shire being on side, I went back now to the Progress Association, and I was the treasurer of that association at the time, and I requested permission to go under the umbrella of the Progress Association, but to remain as a separate identity as the War Memorial Committee. And that was approved, so we set up a separate account, and then we started waiting for the Shire to allocate us a piece of land, because we couldn't apply for any grants or anything unless we owned a piece of land, of course. And the part of our little group, there was 3 ex-World War II sailors who had served on small ships, and they were adamant of the fact that we don't start anything unless we can get a piece of ground where we've got complete ocean views. So we selected, in our idea, there was a toilet block down on a piece of ground at the end of Hastings Street, which was full beach frontage, and that particular area, there was a few yards of park, and there was a road along the edge of this park, and the rest of it was bushy sand hills. And that piece of ground was the piece of ground that we as an ex-servicemen's group reckoned would be great. So I went back to the Shire, and I was offered 2 or 3 alternatives, etc., etc. But eventually I walked into the Shire one day, and lo and behold, there was the Shire President and the Shire CEO, as we called the executive officer at that stage of the game. And as I started to walk towards them, I said, "Here comes trouble." And there was a bit of a silence. I said, "Well, do I get a bit of ground?" And they had eye contact and said, "Righto, how much of it do you want?" So my heart gave a big jump and I felt extremely happy, and we got down to detail. Now, once they said we could have that piece of land, there was lots of things to do. And the first thing to do, of course, was to get a clear and concise plan of how to build a war memorial. And I had no more idea. I had plenty of ideas about war, but I had no idea of building a war memorial. I'd never been involved in it, neither had any of the other people. And so therefore I went out and started to pick brains. And the first chap I went to was a good smart young member of the Shire staff, the project officer, and that was David Seymour, well known in the Shire, the Seymour name. I picked David's brains as to how we go about getting the area cleared and levelled and all the rest of the business. And he was quite happy to tell me what would take place once the project was approved by the Shire. So then I had to find out from the brains of someone else how we go about building it. What do we need, where do we get it? And one of my good friends in town was Mr. Peter Rossendale, fully qualified architect. So I sat down with Peter on quite a few occasions, and I told him we wanted to build at this stage a 3-step with an obelisk war memorial with paved surrounds and rest and remember seats. And this had all been discussed previously with a little ex-servicemen's group, and the Air Force chap in our group was adamant that with the obelisk it had to come to a very sharp single perch on the top of it. Now, there are lots and lots of seagulls, and the reason he wanted the sharp point was so that no more than one seagull at a time could sit up on it. Make what you would of that. So my son happened to be there, and I told him to show the drawing to the group, which was a 3-step and the obelisk. And we titivated it up a bit and put the seats in, and that's what I went to Peter, the architect, with. And from that he drew the big plans up properly for the Shire, and the Shire accepted the plans. So now we knew where we stood, and we had to delineate the exact dimensions and one thing and another. And the architect helped immensely there by proportionately saying, if you have this, you can have that. And he put that all together. So now that gave me sufficient intelligence of what was required to allow me to do a task analysis of the thing. I did the task analysis and the logic diagram in cohesion with Peter, and he graciously advocated that he would, if I liked, subject to Shire approval, label contract each portion as it went along. In other words, it would be subcontracted. What he did was subcontract each section once the building was ready to be started. Anyhow, the next man in the program, of course, was David Seymour's yard foreman, who was a chap by the name of Terry Powell. And he was the chap the estimation of costings had been done by Peter for us, and we had started into applying for grants, and the Shire offered to in-kind clear and level the bush and sand hills to park standard as in-kind value towards the costing of the subject, and for that I think the whole of the community of Landarium will be forever grateful. So in due course, with Terry, I went down to the area, and prior to this I'd been interviewed by the Midlands Advocate. They got word that we were going to build a war memorial out in Jurien Bay, and they sent a young lady out to ask all the necessary questions and things, so I took her down and pointed to the site where it's going to be built. And she said, "Could I take a photo of you doing that?" And I said, "Sure, we're just happy that it's going to happen." So the gracious lady lined me up and said, "Well, point to where you reckon your memorial's going to be." And I said, "Well, it's going to be just there." And I pointed at the spot, and she duly published that particular photograph in the Midlands Advocate. So then I started getting some telephone calls from some of my old mates in Mooratown, schoolmates, Shire, and going on. But anyhow, this is all happening in about 1998. 98 we first started trying to organise it, but 99 things got serious, and we got the ground cleared and all that happened, and then we started, I think it was about the middle of 99, no, the end of 99, I think we got the first lot of big limestone blocks in. Peter vetted them and said, "Yeah, righto, they're the type that we want," and he organised the subcontracting for the building with all the 3 tiers of blocks, and bearing in mind that I said the first thing we want in the ground in the front of the memorial is the flagpoles, because we don't want to be digging up paving and stuff like that to put the flagpoles in after. So that happened. That proceeded we'd got our first lot of money that by then, and I'd opened up a single account for the transactions of the War Memorial within the books of the Progress Association, and everything's starting to roll along great. Anyhow, we got to the stage where we thought that we may be able to open it, or when I say open it, you don't open a war memorial, you get it blessed and dedicated by the Reverend Christian gentleman, and any other religion that would like to be involved with it, you give them the option, but mainly the Christian denominations will bless the ground, which makes it hallowed ground that is done with building churches, etc. Then I had to organise the exact position of the flagpoles so that they were equally spaced, bearing in mind the protocol attached to the flying of flags. But that was overcome without much difficulty at all. And so we're progressing along in 20,000, and one of our particular grants got knocked on the head by about 50%. Now, I also had a friend working in the Shire by the name of Damien Martin. And Damien was really an employee of the Northern Wheat Belt Commission. And this gentleman was a wizard, talked all the right languages and knew all the right words to approach the government for grants, be they quasi-governments or whatever. So we reapplied into a different area, and we got that particular money, which I think was about $7,000 at that stage. But anyhow, that allowed us to keep the project going, but things still started to get a bit tight when it came to the obelisk and the rest and remember seating. And by chance, the local member for more at the time was another friend of mine, but well known throughout the wheat belt areas in this shire in particular, by the name of Bill McNeed. Bill was a straight shooter and a good talker, and I happened to be talking about another subject with him on the phone, and he said, "How's your memorial going?" And I said, "Well, we're running a bit tight on the finance side." And he said, "Well, you're still talking about October to launch it?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, would you not think of going over into 2001? And I thought for a minute or two, and I said, "Why? What's so great about 2001? He said, "Well, think of it. Where's your early days?" He said, "Oh, gee whiz, yeah, the centenary of Federation." He said, "So true, mate. The government be throwing money around with both hands. Put your date back and start reapplying." I thought, what a heck of a good idea. So we did this post haste, and lo and behold, the only problem I struck on one occasion was when this lady was interviewing me over the phone for a grant of $5,000, and she said, "But Mr. Clarke, you don't mention Federation anywhere in your grant." So I switched into overdrive in my brain and promptly replied with, "Well, my secretary must have left that word out of the application, because the memorial will be built in Federation Memorial Park." "Oh, that sounds lovely, that's great," so bang, we copped that too. But then I had to convince the Shire to name the park Federation Memorial Park, but that's okay, they were on side. So anyhow, the whole program was finally completed, and there was this magnificent little memorial looking straight out on the ocean, and we, as an ex-servicemen's group, invited the Shire blokes, but they had other things on. So we went down quietly one day, and we'd been doing busy bees, planting lawns and sinking bores and all that type of stuff. And anyhow, we'd planted some pine trees on this particular day, and we sat on the seats of the memorial and had a beer or two and said, "Well, there she is." Unfortunately, it wasn't finished. Our little problems weren't finished because the bores that we had turned out to be no good. And we finished up, we had to sink, I think it was 3 or 4 different bores before we came up with one that was compatible with making the lawn grow. And we'd worked everything out to the fact that we could quite easily dedicate the memorial in March of 2001. Now, we debated quite deeply whether or not we should make it on Anzac Day, but there were very compelling reasons why we didn't do that. And that was the fact that by habit and by want of doing so, a lot of the people that were extremely interested in Anzac Day had various different places where they wanted to go to. And we wanted to make a big thing and to have as many people of the Shire, because, let's face it, it's the Shire's memorial, it's the Dandarian people and the then Darrington Shire and all towns included. That's who the memorial belongs to, with the RSL having now that we've got an RSL, the RSL having the honour and privilege of being the caretakers of it. But that's rather simple. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So March the 24th became the day for the blessing and dedication. Now, I know from my experiences that anything that's blessed and dedicated is a pretty big deal as far as military protocol, and the requirements are specifically laid down. For instance, we require 3 clergy, the Church of England, Catholic and OPD. Other Protestant denominations are required to give the blessings and implore the Lord to create a patch of what's known as hallowed ground. And so this now became a new project, and I needed another objective. Or once again, I had the objective, dedicate and bless and present a war memorial. So I had the objective, but now I've got to find out how and when and where and what goes on. And there was quite a bit to it, but because of the amount of military planning in it, a lot of it was pretty easy. But another friend of mine over in Canberra, who had at one time been the regimental sergeant major in the Duntroon Military College, and was at this time the officer in charge of protocol and ceremonial at the military college. So I thought, who better than Norm Goldspink, whom I'd soldiered with as a sergeant years ago. And I renewed contact with Norm, and he said, I'll send you the lot, Jim. We won't try to talk about it. So he sent me the lot, and fortunately, not long beforehand, they had that self-same service at in the Avenue of Memorials at Canberra, and he had a complete copy of the book of the service from go to woe. They said, if you follow this, you can't go far wrong. So that's where it came from, the opening ceremony. In between times with our memorial, to arrange the actual day, we decided to go whole hog, and I run a few things past the Shire about who I would like to invite from the military side. And I said, I'm thinking very, very seriously of inviting the governor. So there was a few eyebrows raised there, but I thought nothing ventured, nothing gained. So we invited the governor, and we invited the commanders of the Army, Navy and Air Force, and I called in a few old Army favours, and we finished up with the Western Command Band and the Cameron Highlands Band of Western Australia Army. We had the Drum Corps from Jurien, and of course all the commanders of the various services, Army, Navy and Air Force. This particular day in Jurien, I think, will remain in the minds of the Jurien people that witnessed it forever. And one of the, I think, really heart-catching parts of the ceremony was the younger children from the choir of the Jurien Bay School, and they sang a couple of patriotic songs. And there's hundreds of ex-soldiers, sailors, airmen, wives, goodness gracious knows who not, even the bottle owner by man, I think, was on that lawn that day. For a couple of minutes, or a good minute after those kids finished singing, you could have heard a pin drop. I get a bit emotional about that. They as much as made the service as the dignitaries who were there. At that time we had the police ranger cadets, and they all acted as car orderlies in particular for opening the car doors for the dignitaries as they arrived, and they came down the line from the governor, from the commander of the Navy, Army and Air Force people were all there. And two bands, of course, were on parade with the drum corps. I had enlisted, asked the RSM of the 16th Battalion, Cameron Highlanders in Western Australia at the time, if he would do us the honour of being the parade marshal for that day, and the FUP, the forming up place for all of the numerous contingents of different associations who had expressed a desire to be present. The forming up place was Wells Street in Hastings Street, Jurien. And we picked that one because it was fairly close to the memorial, because a lot of these association people were, of course, World War II associations, which are still going. May they continue to do so. So we didn't want the old bold trying to march along the road for a couple of miles and nowhere to sit down or anything. So we picked on Weld Park. And of course the RSM, he was magnificent in getting all this organisation organised, and the band had strict request, or by order, if you like, to the bandmaster, that when the band started to march off with all the contingents behind them, they were to play the regimental march of the 4th Battalion Royal Australian Regiment. And that was going to happen for me. And it did. And it lifted my spirits, and it consists of a medley of all old Australian songs. Wonderful. So down they all marched and formed up, and I'd had a bit of trouble with the padres for a start off, and one bloke knocked me back cold. I'd given him 12 months notice, but this particular thing had knocked me off cold. But so I thought, right, don't muck about, go to the butcher, not the block. So I rang up a bishop, and he settled the problem in about 5 minutes flat. So we got that padres. So we had our 3 padres, and I might mention, just in passing, the Church of England padre was a fellow by the name of Raymond Molyneux. And Raymond's father had been the Church of England priest when I was a kid in school, and I went to school with Raymond. And I tracked him down via the church because he had followed in his father's footsteps, and was then, lo and behold, I was told up in Broome. But Broome led me to Safety Bay, where Raymond had retired. So I contacted him, and he was right in the midst of some big thing, but he said, Jim, I'll stop everything and I will get you to send me the information of what you want from me, and I'll be there the day before. So that got the 3. We had the OPDs and the Catholic and the good old Church of England fellows all ready to go. And then to top the day off, the Scotties with their pipes and the big brass band have formed, unbeknown to me, a concert party. And I'd been asked by the bandmaster if they could put on a few recitals in the evening. So I naturally jumped at that. So that was one of the last parts of the program for the day that was handed out, printed for us by the Department of Veterans Affairs, God bless them. We had 500 printed, and was nowhere near enough. But so the Scotties, the Jocks, and the brass band combined, and into our big new community centre hall, as we called it at the time, came heaps and heaps of people on the night of the event. And we put out a couple of donation tins, and we wrote a cheque out for, I think it was for just under $2,000, went to the Flying Doctor Service. And it was a heck of a good night too. Now I said I'd talk a little bit more about our memorial being unique. An organisation exists in Western Australia of the 28th Battalion, Infantry Battalion, Western Australia Association, they call themselves. They're a continuation from World War I, where we saw 28th Battalion, and they carried on from World War II, where we had the 2nd 28th Battalion. Likewise, 2nd 11th, 2nd 16th, 10th 1, all sorts of organisations formed around their units once the World War II had finished. There were a group of World War II soldiers who went for a organised tour of Gallipoli, and among this group was another army friend of mine by the name of Don Blair. And when Don came back after that, he said to me, you know, we've just been to Gallipoli, Jim. He said, how's your war memorial going? And I said, well, it's going pretty good, Don. He said, well, I'll be up for it, of course. And he said, how would you like some sands from the main battles of Gallipoli that the Australians fought? He said, I'm talking about Anzac Cove, Shrapnel Gully, the Neck, Chunnock Lone Pine, etc. But the sands are not segregated, but they are sands from each of those battle areas. I said, Don, is the Pope a Catholic? So these sands duly arrived, and also a little hooker on for myself. But when we discussed it as the ex-servicemen, we decided that we would not use them in the dedication and blessing ceremony because we didn't think it fitted. But we would prepare and get everything ready and make it part of the first Anzac service carried out at the War Memorial. And at that particular, which was March, the memorial was opened. So we went into April on Anzac Day, and we bored a hole into the obelisk and put up a little altar table, all pretty, and the sands were then blessed by the padres, with 2 padres there. The padres blessed the sands as part of the Anzac Day ceremony, and they blessed the sands and put them into the memorial. And that was part of the Anzac Day ceremony, the first ceremony held at the Anzac Day ceremony held at the War Memorial. Now the next little thing that came round, of course, is now we had to put a plaque over the War Memorial sands. So we came up with the idea that we would have a brass plaque, and I was to choose wording for it. So I chose the wording which is up on the plaque there now, but then we had to pay for it. So once again, I went around to the ex-servicemen's group and said, hey, come on, undo the wallet, we want to be Bob, this thing's costing $500. So anyhow, the first couple of blokes, one go, going to give me 50, one was going to give me 100 or something. And then Robin Kerr, who was a farmer from Carew and an old soldier at heart forever, ex-World War II soldier, and very, very positive type of a man, Robin. He said to me, I didn't contribute much, Jim, to when you blokes were building this thing. He had come to live permanently in Jurien Bay. His son took over the farm, and he said, how much is it? I said, well, I'm not quite sure. Could be somewhere around 500. He said, well, I tell you what, you get your plaque and get whatever you want on it and send the bill to me. So that was gratefully accepted. And this time after the Anzac Day ceremony, we wound up the finances with the Progress Association, and our service group thanked the Progress Association for all their many bits of help and one thing and another in getting the memorial built. And there it stands so gloriously today, and the plaque reads, "Within these walls are sands from the battles of Gallipoli which soaked the blood of the Anzacs, lest we forget." And I guess that's about the run-of-the-mill of the War Memorial. I'd like to comment, I know this might not be acceptable, but of all the of people, little ex-service groups, big ex-service groups, cadets, etc., etc., there was a contingent on parade for that opening day, that blessing and dedication day, of Air Force cadets. And believe me, as an old regimental sergeant major, those young men, I'll call them, actually still boys, they were the best turned out, drilled, magnificent demonstration of military precision on that day of the group. And, we feel that from having rocks in our head to having a unique war memorial, I'm told that there is one other memorial known, I believe, in Cooktown in Queensland, that also has some sands from Gallipoli. But I don't know of any other. So I think we are both privileged. It makes you think when you read it, and not only privileged, but we should be most thankful to that 28th Battalion for thinking of a little old country town's memorial. Long may it be there. Thank you. I held the first public Anzac Day service in Jurien Bay, strangely enough, at the golf club. The golf club had just recently had its clubhouse completed, and they had a flagpole. There weren't many flagpoles around in Jurien Bay, but anyhow, there was a father and son contingent there by the name of Co 1 and Co 2, and father, he had a notebook full of songs, just the thing. And we used to have fun nights for raising money for the JCC, the big hall that we wanted. And Ron would be there and someone sing out, play so-and-so, anything. But anyhow, coming back to the first war memorial, we're talking up at the golf club one day and getting aboard the Anzac Day. And Co Junior and Co 2 has what a Vietnam vet. And he said, why don't we have a little Anzac service here? He said, you could take your Anzac service, Jim. I said, yeah, I'd give it a go. What have we got? We got a BA system. We got a flagpole. I said, well, I've got a flag. I said, we got a flag here too. So anyhow, I think it was about that time when the golf club, or might have started it the day before, the Anzac Day before, but the men were delegated they'd play a 4-ball batter ball in the afternoon, and the men had to prepare the evening meal. So naturally enough, the men came up with the idea of bangers and mash and prunes and disgusted brought to fore. But anyhow, so we ran the first little, we had about 30 or 40 people there. We had tape music for the last post and the silence and reveille, and it was quite a good service, really. Everyone was in the mood for Anzac Day, and then we belted off around the golf course all that great day. And then I think it was the following year that the big hall was finished. And the big hall, of course, had the flagpoles there. And the forecourt of it lent itself to a public area. So I was asked again if I would conduct a Anzac Day service up there. So this became a bit more formal, wherein we had a nice PA system from the hall and all that type of thing. And the public patronised it quite well, but there was one thing missing, there was somewhere to lay the wreaths. So we ran this little ex-service group still. We ran the next, I think, 3 years before we got the War Memorial. And then, of course, everything gravitated to there. But one of the things that is, I think, unique, again, not with the War Memorial, but with one of the magnificent things of community spirit in the Shire here is that we get a small amount of money from the RSL and DVA for a gunfire breakfast on Anzac Day. And previously, as we weren't a recognised organisation, that didn't happen. But the bowling club here in Jurien Bay and the golf club in Jurien Bay, they alternate each year to put on a beautiful spread after our Anzac Day service. And we can help that out financially. You can't beat country cooking. and the members of each club respectively put it on with heartfelt endear for the remembrance, I hope, of the hundreds of thousands that we've lost in war fighting for our country. And it's an absolute tribute to their memory, but also it's a wonderful community endeavour there. But the forecourt of the memorial area wrong, the forecourt of the JCC, as we called it then, was quite adequate. We managed to use the chairs out of the hall, and they were well and truly occupied. But quite a few of the ex-servicemen that were on the perimeter of our active ex-servicemen's group were, they were all World War II blokes, and they were getting on a bit. So they used to come along and do a bit of raking up, blokes like Jack Bickford, Harvey Armstrong, for two that I can remember straight off. But we didn't expect them blokes to do the heavy lifting or pushing or spade work. At one time we had a full row of our pines along the edges of the park, but for some unknown reason or another, vandals used to break them down all the time. Anyhow, we've still got lone pine down there. But the other thing that I came to war with the school police range cadets, we even before we formed the RSL here, after the opening of the memorial, the dedication, we approached the Shire and the school principal and said, look, we're working a little bit with the police ranger cadets, helping them out with a bit of quick march and this type of stuff. But we said, we would like, with your permission, and the OC of the cadets who's agreeable, to form a charter, Shire, the police ranger cadets, and the ex-servicemen's group, and make the ranger cadets the honorary wardens of the War Memorial. And this is the charter that we'd like the cadets to sign up to. And that was the charter of helping to make sure that the memorial is treated in the proper manner, and that the surrounds are never damaged, and no graffiti, no plastic bags hanging around or anything like that. And anyhow, it was duly accepted. And just recently, we've amended the charter to carry on with the police ranger cadets and the other service emergency cadets. So they've accepted the same charter. So, and well, it's been there now, what, 16 years, no, 15 years. Never had a mark on it, so I don't know whether it's the charter or whether it's good luck. But I've seen a bit of graffiti around the place, not very much at times, but fortunately, little memorial's still there, it's still going. Well, they virtually run the Vietnam War Day, and they run that at the memorial. They also run the Remembrance Day, and that's the 11th of November, of course, and that's a community day, and there are lots of people, and the whole school run that under the auspices of the cadets. The cadets do all the programming and all that type of stuff, but the whole school comes out, and I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
In fact, on one occasion, without telling Maurice, I was sitting there, and each particular non-for-profit organisation or what have you in the whole town were laying wreaths, and then a couple of the school children. And I was sitting there and I watched two itty-bitty children, probably, I don't know, 5, 6 years of age perhaps, not much more anyhow. And they had a little wreath with 2 banksy nuts and a half circle of gum leaves, sort of wired and tied together. I watched these 2 little kids walk up to the reception place for the wreaths, and just seeing them walking up there, you know, and I half laughed to myself, and I thought, you know, that's what I went to war for. And I'm quite sure that a lot of the other servicemen feel the same way, but sometimes ex-servicemen like to forget, but they like to remember at times too, and what it was all about, why we did it, and it doesn't matter. The principle doesn't change. We've done it for democracy, and hence we build our memorial to try and get our forthcoming generations to realise that freedom doesn't just come. Freedom's been paid for a very high price by Australians, and also particularly our cobbers next door with the New Zealanders. My last bit of active service, I was soldiering with a Kiwi. Still tell them they're no bloody good soldiers. They tell us we're the worst soldiers in the world, so we know our friendship's pretty good.